Good morning and welcome to this March 15th session of the OBX Wave Report. I am Robert Scribbler, your reporter on all things waves, weather, climate, and beach lifestyle. And for today, we're going to get into some of the local surf conditions. We're going to get into some of the weather picture for the lower 48 United States. We're going to talk a little bit about climate and some of the temperature anomalies as they spread around the globe. We're going to provide you guys with a forecast for the wave conditions in the Outer Banks over the next 5 days. And we're going to talk a little bit about a nor'easter that's starting to show up in the models for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday timeframe of next week. So we've got a lot going on. Before I get into all that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the waves in the Outer Banks. And one of the things about waves in the Outer Banks is they're quick and they're hollow. And it's actually really good practice, particularly in the wintertime, for barrel riding because the waves are just very powerful. They move across the ocean with a lot of force, and then when they get to shore, they really throw their lips forward and create a big hollow face. And catching the wave is a bit it's a bit of a gut check. It's even the smaller waves because the face will very rapidly steepen, and you've got to have your foot positioning and your pop up all ready to go. And what honestly, like because of the speed of these waves, one of the things that I've noticed that I've been doing is I kind of want to hold on to the rails of my board to get that angle like perfect because the waves are so fast, and that's actually a bad habit. You want to keep your palms flat on the board when you do the pop up because if you grab the board, you're not actually having as much space to place your foot, and oftentimes it can throw off your balance unintentionally. So the reason why I bring this up is I was talking about another local. I'm talking with another local about the waves here in the Outer Banks just yesterday, and who was like having kind of like s- talking about the challenging nature of the waves here, and I was like, you just gotta charge it. You can't be afraid to wipe out, because as you get into these really steep waves, your mind and your body is going to start to come into communication on what you need to do to maintain your balance in those steeper waves. So you just, in a way, you've kind of got to just go out there and get the wipeouts over with, um, and just charge it. And because the waves are so fast in the Outer Banks, it does teach you really good technique, because you got to get your technique down and have it really solid if you're going to ride these waves. And so it's just really good training, particularly in the winter time when the waves are so hollow here. So just a comment on the nature of the waves. This is a shot from Avalon Pier yesterday, where I got some beautiful shots of large and hollow waves offshore. This particular swell moving in offshore at Avalon Pier yesterday on March the 14th as strong west winds hollowed out the inner face of the waves and blew the wave tops off. All right, so a little brief talk about some surfing fundamentals and just generally being brave in the surf. Um, all right, so let's get into our wave report for today. Let's see, do I have, I did not. Okay, so I'm gonna have to shrink this down here. Here we go. Hopefully YouTube won't be upset with me. Okay, all right, so looking more at weather and climate, I did want to talk a little bit about two major features right now. One is a nor'easter that's still impacting the US Northeast, starting to head offshore now, bringing in strong northwest winds here for the Outer Banks behind it. And here in California, we've had a atmospheric river that's been impacting California. A high pressure system today has moved in, pushed the atmospheric river to the south, more toward the Baja and parts of the US Southwest, so New Mexico and Arizona, more under the gun for precipitation than most of California, which has got this high pressure system. Um, I did want to show you what the weather predictions are for California with regards to this atmospheric river. And it does look like over the next couple of days, at least, it's going to be drier for California as the atmospheric river gets broken up by a high pressure system. But it does look like later we might get some more impulses of precipitation heading toward California. But for now, for the next 3 to 5 days, looks like a little bit of a drying trend for California. So that's relatively good news. Let's hope that that bears out in the forecast. All right, so getting down to the NOAA GeoColor composite, we've got beautiful clear skies here on the Outer Banks. Um, got a photo of the dawn from a friend, so we had a beautiful dawn this morning, clear skies, clear cerulean blue skies overhead. Strong cold northwest winds. Temperatures got down into the 30s this morning, really cold here in the Outer Banks. For the Outer Banks, of course, those of you in the rest of the United States might be scoffing at the fact that I'm saying that the 30s is really cold, but it is for us here in the Outer Banks. And you can see the swirl of that nor'easter off the Maine and Massachusetts, Vermont coastlines, and then the most recent impulse starting to move over the Rockies, combining with some Gulf moisture. And that'll be our next storm system coming in through the Outer Banks. It's going to be a pretty strong frontal system coming in on Saturday. Looking at the enhanced cloud tops, you can see that moisture heading up over the Rockies with some cold air and snows sinking down over the central U.S. And the Rockies as well, with that frontal boundary beginning to fire up in the central U.S. and the nor'easter swirling off the Maine coastline. And then looking at the National Weather Service radar, we still have some flood watches and warnings up for California, even though it looks like the trend is moving more toward drying for California. Got some frost advisories out, excuse me, for the U.S. Southeast, and still some storm warnings up for parts of Massachusetts as the nor'easter moves on offshore, and some snow advisories for the Rockies as well. All right, so let's get on into the local reports for waves for the Outer Banks. We're going to start out at Jeanette's Pier, as we usually do. Our science and clean energy pier here, fantastic location here on the Outer Banks. And right now, the waves are in the range of 2 to 3 feet at Jeanette's Pier, wind coming out of the northwest at 29 miles per hour. So very strong wind out of the northwest as an offshore flow. Waves again in the 2 to 3 foot range, getting blown out a little bit by those strong northwest winds. Primary swell coming in at 12 seconds from the east northeast as a 2 foot swell. Secondary swell coming from the north at 7 seconds, 5 foot swell. So we got two swells coming in here. Um, North swell is not really lining up that well, so that's why we've got those 2 to 3 foot waves. Present air temperatures, cold at Jeanette's Pier, 39 degrees, getting close to the noon hour now, still 39-degree temperatures, that's crazy. Ocean water temperatures at 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Weather conditions are sunny, windy, and an expected high today of 50, so warming up a bit as the cold winds are expected to subside and we start to get some air maybe moving in from the south late today, early tomorrow, to warm things up a little bit here in the Outer Banks. Okay, so I'm going to head on south, going to talk about a couple of other locations with regards to waves. Right now, Rodanthe waves are also in the range of 2 to 3 feet, and this is also true for S-turns. So as you get across the Oregon Inlet Bridge, waves remaining in the 2 to 3 foot range, both for Rodanthe and S-turns. And then as we head on down to Avon, waves a little bit taller in the range of 2 to 4 feet with a 30-mile-per-hour northwest wind that is offshore, very strong, hollowing out those waves likely at Avon. Primary swell coming in at 12 seconds out of the east-northeast at 2.5 feet. Secondary swell coming in out of the north at 7 seconds at 5 feet. Again, east-northeast being the primary swell. That's, pretty hollow swell. That north secondary swell not lining up as well. Air temperature is also 39 degrees there at Avon, and ocean water temperatures at 54, a bit warmer but colder than it has been. And then weather conditions for Avon today, sunny, windy, and an expected high of 49, so not even as warm as is expected to get up here near Jeanette's Pier. And then for our last location, the big wave spot for the Outer Banks today, again, is Buxton. Buxton at 4 to 5 feet. Right now, 4 to 5 foot waves with a 29 mile per hour northwest wind, very strong offshore flow. Primary swell coming in at 12 seconds at 2.5 feet. That's out of the east northeast, and the secondary swell coming in at out of the northeast at 4 feet, lining up pretty well there at Buxton, providing those 4 to 5 foot waves. Present air temperatures at Buxton are 43 degrees Fahrenheit. Ocean water temperature is 57. Colder there at Buxton than it has been, but still close to the 60-degree mark, so warmer. Hopefully, water temperatures will start warming up. We've had a colder spate here in the Outer Banks, so that has helped to keep ocean water temperatures cooler, which is unfortunate, as I kind of been hoping for some warmer conditions as we got into March, but we haven't really yet gotten that. Right now, weather conditions are sunny, windy, and an expected high of 50 degrees. Okay, so drawing out to look at the larger climate picture, I did want to show you the disposition of hot and cold. Make sure that we are on the 15th. Yep, we are. And right now, it looks like warm air invasions for the Arctic are coming up from the Siberian continent. I'm sorry, from the Asian continent through Siberia. And we've got this region of above freezing temperatures here in Western Russia, and just much warmer than normal temperatures over Siberia here for March. And that's where the warm air invasions, warmer, I mean, we say warm, but it's not warm by any stretch. It's just much warmer than normal over these regions. And then here for the United States, we have colder than normal air sinking in through the US East. Um, it's supposed to warm up here in the east as some warm Gulf air gets dredged up ahead of a front. The Gulf of Mexico much warmer than normal at the ocean surface, so that's going to help to fuel some severe weather for the eastern United States as another front moves in and the nor'easter moves off the US East Coast. And then looking at the temperature anomaly map, we do see those colder than normal conditions here over the southeast and colder than normal conditions for parts of the North American continent. Worth noting that we've got some warm air moving in through the southwest. And I did want to highlight this just massive swath of above normal temperatures ranging from northwest Africa all the way through the Asian continent, parts of Europe as well. And this has just been very consistent. A little bit concerned about this as we get into summer. We'll have to see how conditions line up. Also worth noting that the Antarctic continent is much warmer than normal as well. It's actually the global hotspot right now is Antarctica at 1.4 degrees Celsius above normal. And again, the global anomaly is still about 0.7 degrees Celsius about above normal if we round up. I haven't seen a below normal day in a very, very, very long time in the global temperature monitors. So we're, definitely seeing the effects of fossil fuel burning on our climate. Okay, so getting into the NOAA quantitative prediction forecast for the lower 48, we do have a tendency for more storminess and severe weather for the U.S. Southeast over the coming days. We've got a front that's predicted to bring some severe weather to the U.S. Southeast, as well as a potential for a nor'easter to begin to form along the Gulf early next week and then track up the U.S. East Coast slowly. So we will have to keep our eye on that. It's worth noting that precipitation amounts for California over the next 7 days are still pretty intense. So I guess we are still expecting to see some storms riding in through California, despite the fact that the atmospheric river seems to have been chopped up a bit. I'm actually a little surprised by this prediction, but it does appear that NOAA expects stormy conditions for California to continue through the next 7 days. Maybe at the tail end, we'll see some more stormy conditions for California in the 5, 6, 7 day time frame. All right, looking more close to the present at the convective outlook For today, no major severe thunderstorms predicted for the United States, but then as we get into tomorrow, we have enhanced risk for parts of Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas as a front sweeps on through the central U.S. And then as we get into Friday, some risk of severe thunderstorms along the Gulf Coast in association with that predicted front. Okay, so let's get into the forecast. I'm going to have to go back to the earlier model run here provided by Tropical Tidbits. Please check out Tropical Tidbits by Levi Cohen. I think Levi is going to start waking up and providing us with more tropical information as we get closer and closer to the Atlantic hurricane season. We'll just have to see. Look forward to what Levi has to say. Tropical storms and hurricanes are big wave makers for those of us who are surfers, and they do have, there's a lot of climate research surrounding hurricanes and tropical storms right now. So, also a very interesting element with regards to the global climate and weather picture. All right, so for today, we have the nor'easter heading on off the U.S. northeast coast. We've got a frontal system gathering in the central U.S. And then as we get into Thursday, the front gathers more steam with a low pressure center anchoring it. Low pressure is going to head off toward the Great Lakes as behind it and toward the Gulf Coast region, severe weather trails. This front is expected to sweep toward the East Coast on Friday and then start to cross the East Coast on Saturday with potential for some storms and then maybe some severe thunderstorms down in Florida as we get in later into the day on Saturday. And then the front is expected to sweep on offshore, bringing in those cold northwest winds behind it. And into Sunday, it's expected to be clear here in the Outer Banks. Same with Monday, but as we get into Monday, we see a gathering storm here in the Gulf of Mexico, and let's back this up into late Monday. So you can start to see the stalled front across the Atlantic and the Gulf Coast starting to tap into those warmer than normal ocean waters, and that difference between hot and cold helping to fuel some storminess across the Gulf and the Atlantic. And then we have a low forming on Tuesday in the Gulf of Mexico, and this low is expected to gather steam in the Gulf and then track north and east through Florida and then up the US East Coast on Wednesday. And this is a slow moving system on Wednesday, expected to bring likely nor'easter type conditions to the Outer Banks with winds coming in from the southeast at first and then moving more toward the east and northeast with a pretty direct onshore flow. Looks like a strong system, although the central low pressure in the 994 millibar range is not too crazy. It does look like a well organized system and nonetheless a relatively strong system. So Wednesday and Thursday, the Outer Banks under the gun for a nor'easter, possibly with nor'easter conditions extending on into early Friday. This is about a week out or more in the model, so still grain of salt territory. We'll keep an eye on it. We've been under nor'easter watch for a long time, and so we'll just have to see how this storm develops. And then behind this system, another front expected to sweep on through as we get into the late week on March 26th. And that provides us with a view of the forecast for weather. Let's get down to waves. So right now, on the backside of a low pressure system for the Northeast, we've got like a nor'easter up here, and we've got those northwest winds coming in. So offshore wave heights are pretty tall in the range of 6 to 8 feet. Those waves are not translating to the coastline because we've got mainly 2 to 5 foot waves here on the coastline, that due to the northwest flow blowing those swells out. And then as we get into the day tomorrow, the swell orientation is going to shift back to the north and east, although the waves are likely to be relatively smaller along the coast. I would say probably also in the 2 to 5 foot range, depending on your location, maybe 1 to 2 foot for some of the smaller breaks. But the winds are expected to subside. The swell is supposed to orient more toward the north and east, and so it's likely that those waves will tend to line up better tomorrow. Still expected to be relatively cold tomorrow, but not as cold as it was today. And I do want to show you the winds dying down tomorrow, and then the air temperatures Still cold in the middle to upper 40s, but not as cold as today, not in the 30s. All right. And then, so as we get into Friday, we start to see those southwest winds coming in ahead of the front. Some of these winds could be pretty strong, particularly as we get later on into the day. I'd seen some potentials for like 40 or even 50 per hour wind gusts coming in from the southwest on Friday. So it could be a very blustery day, particularly as we get later into the day on Friday. But it's worth noting that ahead of that front, air temperatures are expected to warm up considerably, um, probably getting into the 60s for high temperatures later in the day on Friday. And we'll have to see right now the global forecast system model for 48 hours out showing temperatures in the middle to upper 50s. But I think it's probably going to get a little warmer, just an opinion. Um, okay, so yep, right. And on Friday, looking at significant wave heights in the near offshore environment in the range of 3 to 4 feet. I think in generally we're probably looking at 1 to 4 foot waves for most beaches, except for the south facing beaches, which might be a little bit bigger and gnarlier. We'll just have to see, but it looks like mainly 1 to 4 foot waves on Friday, depending on your location, with the south facing beaches seeing maybe 4 to 6 and building throughout the day as those southwest winds intensify. And then as we get into the day on Saturday, I'm just going to roll this back to the 11 o'clock hour. And then on Saturday, we do see the influence of those south winds really kicking up in the late morning hours with a south swell in the range of about 7 to 8 feet coming in. Worth noting that for the east facing beaches, the swell will tend to be smaller, with the possible exception of Buxton, where Buxton gets like basically all the wraparound swells. So Buxton might actually be a decent day for riding waves on Saturday. Might be a decent location on Saturday. And then do we have the Sunday? Yep, we do have Sunday. Behind the front, we get the winds coming out of the northwest. And so the swell orientation also shifts to the northwest. And with so much westerly flow, I don't expect the east-facing beaches to see much in the way of tall waves. Although we still might be seeing some relatively large waves on Saturday. So, 1 to 2, maybe 1 to 3 foot for most beaches. Buxton might be 2 to 4, 3 to 5 on Sunday. And I don't believe we get into Monday. Let's go back. Let's tease this all out to Monday. As we get into the Monday, the swell orientation will shift more toward the east, although it looks still looks a little confused, but the swell orientation shifting more to the east. I think generally Monday will tend to be a better day, if small, when it comes to waves. All right, so thank you for joining me for this session of the OBX Wave Report, um, and for the wave forecast for the Outer Banks. And as I always do, I'd please like to ask you to do everything you can to help speed the transition to clean energy and thereby save our beautiful coastlines from the impacts of climate change driven by fossil fuel burning, clean energy being wind, water, solar, and electric vehicles. We can do it. We totally can. Don't listen to the bad actors and the misinformation that's out there. The primary response to climate crisis, the center of gravity, is the mass deploying of clean energy. And we have so much to fight for here on the coastline, so many good and beautiful things to that are worth saving to defend. So let's resolve ourselves to do it. We can. It's really not that big a deal. Let's remove the anxiety and the nonsense and just do it. Let's just do what's right. So thank you for joining me for this session of the OBX Wave Report, and I will be back with you from the beaches later today. My state of health is improving after a little spate of the sniffles, so we'll probably be getting in the water tomorrow and Friday. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'll be able to provide you guys with some more in-depth information from my experience at the beaches. So take care, and